Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am Allison, and this is Allison Knows. And tonight we're continuing our special series on the figures behind the scenes of power with a deep dive into Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who appeared on the scene as a victim, but who operated as what prosecutors call the sophisticated madam of Jeffrey Epstein's operation. There's a quote from one of Maxwell's survivors, Sarah Ransom, that perfectly captures her role. She was the one who orchestrated everything. She was the one who pulled the strings. She was the one who made it all happen. End of quote. Tonight we're going to examine how Maxwell transformed from the daughter of a British media tycoon to the central facilitator of one of the most extensive sexual trafficking operations in modern history. We'll trace her family origins and the collapse of her father's empire, analyze her recruitment operation targeting vulnerable young women, map her extensive connections to power across politics, business, and society. Hear directly from her victims, examine her trial and conviction, and understand how the network she built continues to operate despite her imprisonment. By the end of tonight's episode, you'll understand that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't just Epstein's girlfriend or assistant. She was the sophisticated, well-connected operator who built and maintained a network that protected predators and silenced victims for decades. To understand Ghislaine Maxwell, we need to understand where she came from, because her background provides crucial context for how she operated in Epstein's world. Born in 1961, Maxwell was the youngest of 9 children of Robert Maxwell, a British media tycoon who owned the Daily Mirror, Macmillan Publishers, and numerous other media properties. She grew up in an extraordinarily wealthy and privileged, educated at Oxford, and moving in the highest circles of British society. But in 1991, everything changed. Robert Maxwell died under mysterious circumstances, falling from his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, named after his favorite daughter. What followed was the collapse of the Maxwell media empire amid revelations that £460 million had disappeared from the company's pension funds. The family went from extraordinary wealth to public disgrace almost overnight. Look at this wealth chart. From £600 million in 1990 to just £2 million by 2000. This catastrophic financial collapse is crucial to understanding Ghislaine's subsequent choices. In 1992, with her family fortune and reputation in tatters, Maxwell moved to New York City, where she met Jeffrey Edward Epstein. This meeting would change the trajectory of her life and the lives of countless young women. From 1994 to 2004, Maxwell became Epstein's closest associate, managing his properties, his social calendar, and as we now know, his recruitment operations targeting vulnerable young women and girls. What's important to understand about this transition is that Maxwell brought something invaluable to Epstein: social connections. Despite her family's disgrace, she maintained relationships with the British elite, including Prince Andrew. She knew how to move in powerful circles, how to make introductions, and how to facilitate relationships. This wasn't just about a woman falling under the influence of a predatory man. This was about a mutually beneficial partnership where Maxwell provided Epstein with social legitimacy across many platforms, while he provided her with financial security and the return to the lifestyle she had lost. Now let's examine how Maxwell's recruitment operation actually worked, because understanding her methodology reveals the calculated nature of this enterprise. Maxwell's approach followed a certain clear pattern. She targeted young women and girls, often economically vulnerable, primarily from Palm Beach and New York. As you can see from this distribution chart based on court records, the majority of known victims were between the ages of 14 and 19 years old. The initial approach was sophisticated and disarming. Maxwell would offer legitimate sounding opportunities, jobs as massage therapists, models, or personal assistants. She would promise educational opportunities and career connections, things that would be especially appealing to young women from a less privileged background. What made this operation particularly insidious was its pyramid structure. Victims were encouraged to recruit friends for additional payments, creating a self-perpetuating recruitment network. This structure served multiple purposes. It expanded the operation, it implicated victims in the recruitment of others, making them less likely to come forward, and it created plausible deniability for Maxwell and Epstein. The operation was global in scope, with properties in New York, Florida, New Mexico, and the Virgin Islands, and international recruitments in cities like Paris, London, and the country of South Africa. This wasn't a localized predatory operation. It was a sophisticated international network. As prosecutors from the Southern District of New York stated, Maxwell was the sophisticated madam. She was the one who made young girls feel comfortable initially, then delivered them to Epstein. What's crucial to understand about Maxwell's role is that she wasn't just following orders. She was an active, enthusiastic participant who used her polish, her accent, her sophistication, and her gender to disarm young women who might otherwise have been wary of Epstein. She was the perfect facilitator precisely because she seemed safe, sophisticated, and trustworthy. The Power Network shows how Maxwell's value to Epstein went far beyond recruitment. She was the connector, the facilitator, the one who maintained and expanded their network of powerful relationships all across multiple sectors of society. Look at the political connections: Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew. These weren't casual acquaintances. These were relationships cultivated over years, relationships that provided protection and legitimacy to Epstein and Maxwell's operation. In the financial world, Maxwell connected Epstein to Wall Street executives and hedge fund managers. Leslie Wexner, the founder of Victoria's Secret, became one of Epstein's key financial backers, giving him power of attorney over his fortune, a relationship that many financial experts still find baffling given Epstein's limited financial credentials. In the financial world and in academic circles, Maxwell and Epstein cultivated relationships with Harvard and MIT through donations, and with the scientific community through Epstein's Edge Foundation, which hosted gatherings of prominent scientists and intellectuals. The media and entertainment industry, within this, they maintained connections with Hollywood celebrities and media moguls, ensuring access to exclusive social events and parties where they could continue to expand their network. Ghislaine Maxwell had a little black book, which was entered into evidence during her trial. This contained contact information for over 2,000 people across politics, business, royalty, and entertainment. This wasn't just a social directory. It was a comprehensive map of global power networks. Look at this radar chart showing the strength of Maxwell's network across different sectors. The reach is extraordinary, and it expands how this operation was able to continue for so long despite multiple investigations and allegations. What's particularly important to understand about this network is that it wasn't just about social connections. It was about mutual protection. The powerful people in Maxwell and Epstein's orbit had a vested interest in maintaining their relationships and ensuring that the true nature of the operation never came to light. Behind the wealth, the connections, and the sophisticated operation were human beings, real human beings, young women and young girls, whose lives were forever altered by the encounters with Maxwell and Epstein. Sarah Ransom testified, Maxwell was one who orchestrated everything. She was the one who pulled the strings. She was the one who made it all happen. Virginia Giuffre, one of the most outspoken survivors, described Maxwell's approach. Maxwell had this accent. She was so proper. She made you feel like you were special and that she really wanted to be your friend. This is a crucial insight into Maxwell's mythology. She used her sophistication and charm to disarm young women before betraying their trust. Annie Farmer, who was only 16 when she met Maxwell, testified, Maxwell touched my breast while giving me a massage. I was only 16 years old and frozen in fear. This testimony directly contradicts Maxwell's defense that she was unaware or uninvolved in the abuse. Maria Farmer, who is Annie's sister, emphasized the partnership aspect. They worked as a team. Maxwell was chief operating officer of this entire sex trafficking operation. Over 150 women have come forward with allegations against Epstein and Maxwell, with testimony spanning more than 2 decades. And this radar chart shows the devastating long-term impact reported by survivors. PTSD, depression, anxiety, trust issues, substance abuse, and suicidal thoughts. What's particularly important to understand about these testimonies is that they consistently place Maxwell at the center of the operation, not as a bystander or an unwitting accomplice, but as an active, enthusiastic participant who used her gender and sophistication to facilitate abuse that might otherwise have been impossible. These women's voices were systematically silenced for decades through intimidation, legal maneuvers, and the protection afforded by wealth and connections. Their courage in finally coming forward is what ultimately brought Maxwell to justice. After decades of operating with impunity, the House of Cards has finally begun to collapse. In 2019, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on federal charges of sexual trafficking of minors, but just weeks later, Epstein died in custody under circumstances that many still question. In 2020, after months in hiding, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested by the FBI. Her trial began in New York in late 2021, where she faced charges of sex trafficking of minors, conspiracy to entice minors to travel for illegal sex acts, and the transportation of a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. On December 29, 2021, Maxwell was found guilty on 5 of 6 counts, and on June 28, 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison, a significant sentence, but as you can see from this chart, less than the 30 years prosecutors had requested and far less than the maximum possible sentence of 65 years. As U.S. Attorney Damian Williams stated after the verdict, the road to justice has been far too long, but today justice has been done. I want to commend the bravery of the girls, now grown women, who stepped out of the shadows and into the courtroom. But what's particularly striking about Maxwell's case is that what didn't happen? No cooperation agreement was revealed. The client list remained sealed and protected. Many powerful connections were never investigated. Maxwell chose to maintain her silence rather than implicate others, even when facing decades in prison. This silence speaks volumes. The nature of the network she helped to build, a network so powerful that even in defeat, its members remain protected. Despite Maxwell's conviction, the network she helped build remains largely intact and operational. This is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the entire case. Only Maxwell and Epstein faced serious charges, while dozens of facilitators and enablers remain untouched. Over 2,000 pages of documents related to the case remain sealed, with the names of powerful associates still redacted. Epstein's fortune, estimated at over $500 million, continues to circulate through a complex web of shell companies and trusts. Former associates maintain positions of power across politics, business, and society. And there's a continued silence from key witnesses and enablers. Look at this accountability gap chart. 2 people charged and convicted, 38 named in documents, 120 known associates, and an estimated network size of 300 people. This isn't justice. It barely scratches the surface. Maxwell's conviction represents only the visible tip of a vast network that continues to operate in the shadows. The true scope remains hidden behind legal protections, wealth, and power. What's particularly important to understand about this network is that it wasn't built around a single predator. It was built as a system designed to procure victims, facilitate abuse, silence witnesses, and protect the powerful. And that system continues to function even with Maxwell behind bars. This isn't just about historical crimes, it's about ongoing impunity and the continued operation of networks of exploitation protected by wealthy people with power. So what do we do with this information? How do we respond to the reality of these networks of exploitation that continue to operate in the shadows? First, we must demand full accountability, not just for Maxwell and Epstein, but for all conspirators and enablers. This means supporting investigations that follow the evidence wherever it leads, regardless of wealth or power. Second, we must protect vulnerable youth by supporting organizations that fight trafficking and exploitation. These organizations are on the front lines, identifying victims, providing services, and working to prevent future exploitation. Third, we must advocate for legal reforms, particularly around statutes of limitations for sexual abuse cases. Many survivors don't come forward immediately. They need time to process their trauma and build the courage to speak out. Our legal system must accommodate this reality. Fourth, we must amplify survivor voices by listening to and believing those who come forward. The survivors of Maxwell and Epstein's operation were silenced for decades. Their courage in speaking out deserves our attention and respect. As one survivor puts it, the justice system worked in this case, but it just seems to me to be the beginning. We must dismantle the entire network that enables powerful predators. This isn't just about one woman or one operation. It's about confronting systems of exploitation that continue to operate throughout our society. It's about recognizing predators who don't operate in isolation. They rely on facilitators, enablers, and networks of protection. Join us next time for our special episode on Paolo Zampoli, the pipeline builder, where we'll examine another key figure in the web of power and exploitation that shapes our world. I am Allison with Allison Knows, and I'll see you next time.